What if the only difference between, the person making $12,000 a year and the one making $60,000 a year wasn't their IQ? Like, it wasn't their work ethic or even their luck. What if the difference was just this single, invisible variable housed completely inside their own skull?
I mean, it completely upends how we usually think about success, right?
Yeah.
We're so used to measuring tangible things. Hours worked, degrees earned, capital raised. But when you move into the actual architecture of personal achievement, you're essentially, you're building in the dark.
You're building in the dark. And for you listening, someone who wants to gain knowledge quickly without just drowning in all the information overload out there, that invisible landscape can feel incredibly frustrating. You want the blueprint, which is exactly why today's mission is so crucial.
Yeah, we were getting right to the core of it today.
Exactly. We are diving into a monumental piece of literature. It's called The Magic of Thinking Big by David J. Schwartz, PhD. And if you've ever seen a physical copy of this book, the cover proudly boasts 6 million copies sold. It's a classic for a reason.
Right. So our goal in this deep dive is to extract the exact hidden mechanisms of how the sheer size of our thoughts dictates the size of our success.
Okay, let's unpack this, because I want to be clear right off the bat. This isn't about, blind, fluffy optimism.
Oh, not at all. It's not about standing in front of a mirror and, chanting affirmations until you feel better.
Yeah.
Schwartz is laying out a highly practical, almost clinical breakdown of how the human mind processes ambition.
Yeah, it's very grounded.
Exactly. Because before you can deploy any specific business strategy or networking technique out in the real world, you have to calibrate the internal engine. And the absolute baseline of that engine is genuine belief.
Which the book illustrates perfectly with the story of Harry. So Harry was a sales representative and, by all physical accounts, just a completely ordinary guy.
Right. Nothing special on paper.
Right. But in a year where the other reps in his company were averaging about $12,000 in earnings, Harry brought in nearly $60,000. Naturally, upper management was just baffled by this.
I mean, who wouldn't be? A 5-time increase is massive.
Exactly. So they put him under the microscope. They tested him, assuming he must be some sort of secret genius. But he wasn't. He wasn't 5 times smarter than the others. They audited his territory and his hours, and he didn't work 5 times harder either. He actually took more vacation time.
That's the crazy part. He was average in every conceivable metric except one. He simply thought 5 times bigger. And what's crucial here is understanding how thinking bigger actually functions in the brain.
Right.
Schwartz introduces this other powerful example of a young woman who decided to launch a mobile home business. She had less than $3,000 to her name.
Wow.
Yeah, and absolutely zero experience in the industry. Plus, she lived in a town where the market was already totally saturated with competitors.
So, on paper, a terrible idea.
A terrible idea. Everyone around her insisted it was a guaranteed failure. But her internal belief in the project was so unwavering that she managed to win the confidence of skeptical investors. She even convinced a manufacturer to advance her an entire inventory with zero money down.
That's incredible.
And in her first 12 months, she sold over $1 million worth of trailers.
Okay, wait, I have to jump in here because that sounds honestly dangerously close to wishful thinking. It sounds like a fairy tale. You can't just cross your fingers, look at a mountain and say, "Mountain, move away." The physical world doesn't just bend to your will because you wish for a 5-bedroom house or $1 million business.
I get that. But what's fascinating here is how Schwartz explicitly tears down the concept of wishing. Wishing is entirely passive, right? It's sitting on the couch waiting for the universe to just, deliver a result. Belief is something entirely different.
Okay, how does he distinguish them?
He uses this brilliant analogy of a thermostat. A thermometer simply reads the temperature of the room. It just tells you what is. But a thermostat regulates the environment. You set it to 72 degrees, and it actually triggers the furnace or the air conditioning to make that reality happen. Belief is the thermostat for human capability.
Oh, wow. That makes so much sense. So it's not magic at all.
Exactly the opposite of magic. It's cognitive allocation. When you genuinely set your belief thermostat to a massive goal, you are signaling your brain that this is a reality to be solved, not just a fantasy to be entertained.
So it changes how your brain processes the problem.
Exactly. Your mind stops wasting energy on doubting if it can be done and immediately redirects all that processing power toward searching for the how-to. Belief literally forces your brain to generate the energy, the skill, and the strategic thinking required to bridge that gap.
But if the leaf turns the success thermostat up, then clearly there is a mechanism turning it down for the vast majority of people, right? Because let's face it, most people are not operating at $1 million capacity.
No, they aren't. And Schwartz diagnoses this with surgical precision. He calls it excusitis, the failure disease. And it's incredibly insidious because it disguises itself as logic.
Disguises itself as logic? How so?
Well, excusitis is the psychological process where a person finds a seemingly valid, socially acceptable excuse for why they aren't moving forward. And once they find it, they repeat it to themselves until it just hardens into subconscious fact. It permanently turns down their thermostat.
And the book breaks this down into different strains, right? Health excusitis is one you hear everywhere, like, I don't have the energy, or my bad back means I can't take on that promotion.
Yeah, that's a huge one.
But Schwartz completely shatters this with the story of an amputee golfer. This is a guy who lost an entire arm, yet he went on to develop a near-perfect golf swing.
It's amazing.
When someone asked him how he managed to do that, his response was just staggering. He said, the right attitude and one arm will beat the wrong attitude and two arms every time.
That phrase is the absolute cure for health excusitis.
Yeah.
Because it's not about denying that you have a physical limitation, right?
Yeah.
It's about refusing to let that physical limitation dictate the boundaries of your mental blueprint. The amputee accepted the missing arm, but he completely rejected the narrative that it meant he couldn't master the game.
Yeah. And then we get into intelligence excusitis, which is this quiet, secret fear that you just aren't naturally smart enough to win. But hold on, I want to play devil's advocate here. Isn't a high IQ an objective advantage in the real world? Society practically worships raw intelligence. We have standardized tests for a reason.
Yeah. I mean, it seems like a guaranteed ticket to success. But Schwartz argues that the thinking that guides your intelligence is infinitely more important than the raw quantity of your brain power.
Okay, explain that.
Well, the book brings up Einstein to prove this point. Einstein was famously asked how many feet were in a mile, and he admitted he didn't know.
Wait, Einstein didn't know how many feet are in a mile?
Nope. He flat out refused to use his brain as a warehouse for trivial facts that he could look up in 2 minutes in a reference book. He understood that the human mind is designed for creating, not storing.
Oh, that is so freeing, which perfectly explains the contrast Schwartz draws between Phil and the PhD graduate.
Yeah.
So Phil was a guy he called a human engineer. No college degree, maybe an average IQ on paper. But he was fiercely positive, understood human nature, and knew how to inspire people.
Right.
He was making $30,000 a year, which was a phenomenal salary at the time the book was written, managing a whole team of college graduates.
And then you have the dark inverse of that. The book describes a man with a PhD who ended up spending 3 years in the Army driving a truck.
A PhD driving a truck? Why?
Because his attitude was entirely toxic.
Wow.
He looked down on his fellow soldiers, he mocked the military procedures, and he operated with his negative superiority complex. His massive, objectively brilliant IQ was completely neutralized by his terrible attitude. The author coined a phrase for this that's just brilliant. He says, stickability is 95% of ability.
Stickability. I love that. It's the grit to keep going, which actually ties directly into the third strain. Age excusitis. It's the trap of believing you are either too young to be taken seriously or too old to start over.
Oh yeah, the I'm too old excuse is everywhere.
There's this fantastic breakdown of a man named Cecil in the book. At age 40, Cecil wanted to completely pivot his career and become a manufacturer's representative, but he was paralyzed. He felt his best years were already behind him, so the author literally does the math with him.
I love this part.
Right. He asks Cecil, when does a person's truly productive professional life begin? Cecil says around age 20. And when does it end? Cecil says around age 70.
And the math instantly cures the disease. Cecil realizes that at 40 years old, he has only burned through 20 years of his productive life. He has 30 years left. He hasn't even hit the halfway mark. He has 60% of his potential entirely ahead of him.
It just changes the whole perspective.
Totally. When you lay it out logically like that, the too old excuse just collapses.
And when all else fails, people fall back on the final strain, which is luck excusitis. We see this all the time, chalking up your own failures to bad luck and someone else's success to good luck.
It's the easiest out.
It is. There's the story of John, a salesman who lands a massive $112,000 machine tool order. Another salesman in the office hears about it and instantly sneers, "Well, John, you're lucky again."
It's fascinating how the brain protects the ego, right? By labeling John as lucky, the unsuccessful salesman completely absolves himself of responsibility. He doesn't have to acknowledge the months John spent meticulously planning, drafting engineering designs, and working late into the night.
He just writes it off.
Exactly. But what Schwartz points out is that beneath all these excuses, whether it's health, intelligence, age, or luck, there's a much deeper psychological infection. Excuses are just the symptom. The root cause is always fear.
Fear. Okay, so if fear is the root, how do we pull it out? The book's answer is elegantly simple, though, not necessarily easy to execute. Action cures fear. Indecision fertilizes it.
Action cures fear. It's a great mantra.
Schwartz talks about Navy recruits in World War II who were terrified of the water. They literally couldn't swim. But the instructors found that the moment a terrified recruit was pushed off the diving board and plunged into the pool, the paralyzing terror vanished.
Because the physical action of being in the water destroyed the abstract fear of the water.
Right.
Yeah, because action forces the brain out of that anxiety loop. When you are standing on the diving board, your brain is simulating 1,000 different catastrophic futures. But the moment you take action, your brain is forced to deal with the present reality.
That makes total sense.
Schwartz translates this to the corporate world, too. There's a story of a retail buyer whose department was failing. Sales were down 7%, he was terrified of being fired, and he basically felt like he was drowning.
So what did he do?
He saved his own career the moment he stopped worrying and started acting. He organized morning sales meetings to inject energy into his team. He ruthlessly marked down and cleared out old stock. The action evaporated his fear, his team caught his momentum, and the department turned around entirely.
Wow. To explain how this internal momentum works, the book introduces a concept called the mind bank. To really picture this for you listening, think of your brain like a massive search engine, and you have two foremen running the algorithms, Mr. Triumph and Mr. Defeat.
I like that search engine analogy.
Yeah, so if you type in the prompt, why is today going to be terrible? Oh, Mr. Defeat immediately goes to the servers and fetches millions of results. He shows you the bad traffic, the looming deadline, the headache you have. But if you type in, why am I capable of handling today? Mr. Triumph runs the search. He shows you your past successes, the skills you've learned, the opportunities in front of you.
And if we connect this to the bigger picture, it exposes the absolute danger of letting Mr. Defeat run your cognitive factory. Every single time you allow Mr. Defeat to retrieve a negative memory or a reason why you will fail, you are literally giving him more real estate in your mind.
Which is terrifying.
It is. Schwartz's directive is uncompromising. Fire Mr. Defeat. You have to consciously choose to only withdraw positive thoughts from your memory bank. And this is particularly vital when it comes to the fear of other people.
Oh, the Army Induction Center realization. This is such a profound shift in perspective.
It really is.
So there's a young man who had always been terrified of people, always feeling inferior to authority figures, and he gets drafted into the Army. He's standing in this massive line of recruits, waiting for their medical exams, and they're all completely naked. And he has this epiphany. Stripped of their tailored suits, their expensive watches, and their fancy job titles, every single man looked exactly the same. They all looked equally vulnerable, a little confused, and just human. It cured his social anxiety instantly because he realized the hierarchy is an illusion. The other fellow is just another human being.
That visual totally strips away the intimidating aura we project onto others. And to cement that internal confidence, Schwartz prescribes 5 physical actions to build the habit of courage.
Right, because your posture affects your mind. What are the 5 actions?
The psychology here is that your physical posture dictates your mental state. First, be a front seater. Stop hiding in the back rows of meetings where you signal to yourself that you don't belong.
Okay, front seater. Got it.
Second, make eye contact. Looking down or away signals guilt and inferiority to your own brain. Third, walk 25% faster.
I actually tried this one. It's amazing how a brisk walk literally changes your internal rhythm. It tells your brain you have somewhere important to be.
It really does. It creates a physical momentum that translates into psychological momentum. The 4th action is to speak up voluntarily at every meeting, breaking the habit of silence. And 5th, smile big. A massive, genuine smile physically relaxes the nervous system and disarms opposition.
Okay, so let's say we're doing the work. We're walking 25% faster, we've neutralized the fear, and our mind bank is exclusively run by Mr. Triumph. How do we turn that outward? Like, how does thinking big actually interact with the marketplace?
This is the pivot from internal management to external creation. The book argues that big thinkers cultivate a specific skill, visualizing what can be, rather than getting stuck in what is.
Visualizing what can be.
Yeah. Schwartz tells the story of a highly successful real estate agent who specialized in rural property. But he didn't just walk a client around a rundown farm and point out the rotting wood. He would spend days analyzing the property, its distance to the city, the topography.
He was seeing the potential.
Exactly. Then he would type up a concrete, detailed vision. He wasn't selling a dilapidated farm. He was selling the vision of a future riding stable or a profitable tree farm. By visualizing the potential, he added immense value, and his clients eagerly paid higher prices.
He used his cognitive bandwidth to create value. But the opposite of that, letting your bandwidth get hijacked by what is wood, leads to what Schwartz calls the tragedy of trivialities.
Yes, the trivialities.
There's that story of the student in the cafeteria, right?
Yeah.
She gets charged 49 cents for a turkey portion that was supposed to be 39 cents. And the cashier just stubbornly refuses to correct the 10-cent mistake.
Over 10 cents.
Over 10 cents. And as a result, the cafeteria loses a regular customer who would have spent $250 a year. That cashier was entirely blind to the big picture. And it happens in corporate settings, too. There's a really painful story in the book about a young executive, let's call him JM.
Oh, the office story.
Yeah. He and 3 other executives get moved into a new suite of offices. 3 of the offices are identical, but JM is assigned the 4th one, which is just a few square feet smaller.
Just a tiny bit smaller.
Right. And he lets this trivial detail completely consume him. He convinces himself he's being discriminated against. He stews in resentment. He becomes hostile in meetings. And he starts undermining his peers. Within 3 months, his performance tanks so badly that he is fired. He let a tiny patch of carpet destroy a highly lucrative career.
It's tragic, really.
But here's where it gets really interesting, though, because it's easy in hindsight to say, don't sweat the small stuff. But when you are in the thick of it, when you are stressed and someone cuts you off in traffic or a coworker makes a passive-aggressive comment, how do you actually stop yourself from getting dragged down into the mud?
The book provides a psychological circuit breaker for exactly those moments. It is a single clarifying question you must train yourself to ask before you react. Is it really important?
Is it really important?
Yeah. When you feel the blood rush to your face because your spouse forgot to run the dishwasher, ask, is it really important? Big thinkers understand that winning a petty argument usually means losing the war. They fiercely protect their cognitive bandwidth for the big objective.
They don't waste energy on the small stuff.
Right. Schwartz compares it to exceptional public speakers. A truly great speaker doesn't panic over a minor grammatical error or a slip of the tongue. They happily ignore the petty rules of perfection in favor of a burning, passionate desire to communicate their message. The message is all that matters.
Keep your eyes on the big ball. But there's a catch, isn't there? You cannot maintain that level of focus, and you cannot protect your mind bank if your surroundings are constantly feeding you garbage.
Oh, absolutely. Environment is everything. Your mind is a product of what it is fed. If you surround yourself with negators, people who constantly complain and shoot down ideas, you will inevitably become a negator.
It's contagious.
It is. Schwartz highlights the tragic case of W.W., a brilliant engineering student. He had the IQ, but his internal environment was totally polluted. He believed the world was rigged, that success only came from extreme luck or knowing the right people.
So he defeated himself.
Exactly. He rationalized failure so consistently that despite his genius, he spent his entire life stuck in a low-paying drafting job. His toxic worldview became a self-fulfilling prophecy.
It reminds me of the classic 3 bricklayers parable Schwartz uses. You ask 3 men what they're doing. The first one says, I'm laying brick. The second one says, I'm making $9.30 an hour. But the third one, doing the exact same manual labor, says, I am building the world's greatest cathedral.
Yes, the mindset shift.
Right. The third man is fiercely managing his internal environment. He is choosing a reality that propels him forward. But managing your environment goes beyond just attitude. Schwartz argues it extends to your physical presentation, too. He drops a strict rule. Go first class. Pay twice as much and buy half as many.
This is a really interesting point in the book.
Well, hold on. I have to push back here. If someone is genuinely struggling to pay rent, telling them to go first class and buy expensive clothes sounds like completely out-of-touch, terrible financial advice.
And this raises an important question about what first class actually means in this context. It is not an endorsement of reckless spending or going into debt for luxury brands.
Okay, so what does he mean?
Going first class is a mindset of prioritizing quality over quantity within whatever financial bracket you currently exist in. Psychologically, it is far better to save up and buy one excellent, well-made pair of shoes that makes you feel confident and lasts for years than to buy 3 cheap, flimsy pairs that wear out quickly and make you feel shabby.
Ah, I see.
Your appearance talks to you. When you look put together, it physically lifts your internal sense of importance.
The incredible thing is, going first class and how you treat others is entirely free.
Completely free.
There's this beautiful anecdote about an elevator operator. Schwartz is riding in this elevator, and the woman operating it looks completely defeated. She is the picture of unimportance, just staring blankly at the doors. One day, he notices she has a new, clearly homemade haircut.
Yeah.
He makes a point to give her a sincere compliment and addresses her warmly by name. And the very next day, her entire posture had changed. She greeted him by name, she stood taller, she radiated this vibrant new energy.
Because making someone else feel important shifts the dynamic of the entire room. It costs you $0, but it pays massive psychological dividends. When you elevate someone else, you automatically elevate your own feeling of self-worth. You become a generator of first-class energy rather than just a consumer of it.
So what does this all mean? If we step back and look at the blueprint we've uncovered from the magic of thinking big, you are walking away with a highly actionable toolkit. You start by setting your belief thermostat to maximum, forcing your brain to find the how-to. You actively reject excusitis, realizing that your attitude is far more important than your health, your IQ, or your age. You use immediate action to short-circuit fear, and you permanently fire Mr. Defeat from your mind bank.
That's right.
You train yourself to visualize the future value of things using the question, is it really important, to avoid the trap of trivialities. And finally, you curate a first-class environment by prioritizing quality and elevating the people around you.
And the most empowering part of this entire framework is that there is no barrier to entry.
Sure.
You don't need a trust fund, you don't need a genius-level IQ, and you don't need a lucky break. You simply need to become the conscious, deliberate manager of your own cognitive factory.
Which brings us right back to that invisible landscape we talked about at the very beginning. The blueprint for your success isn't drafted on physical paper. It is being drawn up right now, second by the thoughts you allow to take root in your mind.
You're in control.
You are the architect, you are building in the dark, but you are the one holding the flashlight. So I want to leave you with a final lingering challenge based on everything we've explored today.
Let's hear it.
If you are entirely the product of your own thoughts and you possess absolute zero compromise control over the 2 foremen in your mind factory, what is the very next thought you're going to actively choose to produce the second this deep dive ends?